Oh, well, thank you, thank you.
I have no idea if it's fresh or not. You got the same cup I got. Oh, very nice. Troops.
Hershey's. Oh, it's almost. The hard shell, the zesty one.
You're really trying to get them to approve your bond.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
No chance.
Yes. Are they going to give you a hard time?
No.
I don't know, Janet. I've been here to talk.
That ain't the first time you've needed a bond, is it, Jen?
Hey.
Did you hear him?
Now my bond for Citrus Springs was $50,000, and it went through within a couple of days over Hager insurance. That's the only place you can get.
Were they afraid of you going to steal stuff?
No, but
Well, she did get kicked out, you know.
but the officers for Citrus
Phil.
Springs, that's what the bond was, $50,000.
Wow. Is that in the documents?
You must be of questionable character.
And then give it to me real sneaky and don't let anybody see. You'll have someone bring it? Okay. You're the best anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a classic. Oh, better get my thing out here. I lost my little. There we go. Oh God, now I've lost it.
Big books down there.
What's that? Good afternoon and welcome to the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners meeting. It's March 25th, 2025 at 1 p.m. We are going to invite Pastor Joshua Carson from the Crystal River Church of God up for the invocation. If you're willing, would you please rise?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with gratitude for the opportunity to gather in service to this community. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we make decisions that will shape the future of Citrus County. May our hearts and minds be open to the needs of all those we serve. Grant us the clarity to act justly, the courage to lead with integrity, and the compassion to listen with understanding. Bless each person present here today, and may your presence guide our conversations, our decisions, and our actions so that we may honor you and support the well-being of all who call Citrus County home. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Captain Baird from the Citrus County Sheriff's Office is going to lead us in the invocation. Pledge allegiance. Do both.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please do the roll call?
This is a regular meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners this 25th day of March, 2025. In attendance are Chair Rebecca Bays, First Vice Chair Diana Finnegan, Second Vice Chair Janet Barrick, Commissioner Jeff Kennard, Commissioner Holly Davis, County Administrator Steve Howard, and County Attorney Denise A. Diamondlin.
Thank you. Board members, County Administrator, could you do the approval of the agenda, please, if there's any additions or deletions?
Just one item, K1 Pirates Cove, the letter of intent has been added. That's all I have.
Thank you. Board members?
Madam Chair, motion to approve the agenda with the additional information on K1.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Finnegan. If there's no further comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next on our agenda today is proclamations, awards, and presentations. If you would join me or get a vote
Motion
first.
to approve B1 and B2.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Kennard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Please join me down front.
Those representing Fair Housing Month, if you could please join us up front. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas Citrus County is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. Our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities. And whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists, and many communities remain segregated. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity are repugnant to common sense and decency and fairness. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida, does hereby designate the month of April 2025 as Fair Housing Month in Citrus County, Florida, executed this 25th day of March, 2025.
On behalf of the Realtors Association of Citrus County, we want to thank you for giving the proclamation for fair housing. As you know, that continues to be an issue all around the United States, and we are committed to continuing the fight for fair housing. So thank you so much for the proclamation.
Those representing Child Abuse Prevention Month, if you could please come forward. Whereas Florida's bright future depends on the healthy development of its children, and adverse childhood experiences, including the abuse and neglect of children, can cause severe and costly consequences for children, families, and society as a whole. And whereas during the month of April, Jesse's Place, in collaboration with the Florida Department of Children and Families, the UF Child Protection Team, Youth and Family Alternatives, Citrus County Schools, Florida Department of Health, Citrus County, Lifestream, the YMCA, Guardian Ad Litem Program, Citrus County Abuse Shelter Association, and the Community Alliance of Citrus County will be coordinating efforts to implement awareness throughout Citrus County about child abuse and to renew a collaborative commitment to break the cycle of abuse, empowering positive parenting practices and promoting the types of concrete support services families need within their communities. And whereas Child Abuse Prevention Month is an important opportunity to urge all Floridians to engage in activities that strengthen families and communities and that provide optimal environment for healthy child development. Now, therefore, the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida, do hereby extend our support to all observing April of 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, executed this 25th day of March, 2025.
Well, good afternoon, commissioners and public that's in attendance. We appreciate you being here today. We just want to say thank you for this proclamation. Child Abuse Prevention Month is obviously an important topic for us at the Sheriff's Office and all of our community partners, whether that's Jesse's Place, our school district, CASA, all of those things that help our most vulnerable assets, in my opinion, in our community, which is our youth. So we appreciate the recognition, and thank you.
Yeah, so on behalf of Jesse's Place, we just wanted to say child abuse is preventable, but everybody has to play their part. And effective prevention includes families, community members, organizations, elected officials, and policymakers. We all have the ability to make positive impacts on the lives of children this month and throughout the year. And Jesse's Place encourages all individuals throughout any organization to get involved. Educate yourself about healthy child development services in Citrus County. Participate, volunteer, mentor youth in our community. Advocate and with your voice and with your vote. Donate and support organizations that serve children, and focus on ways to connect with family, and that might be the best thing that you can do to make our community strong with children and families. This year, we're asking individuals to help shine a light on child abuse by displaying blue lights in their businesses and homes in our communities so that they can show support in serving victims of child abuse and bringing awareness to those in need. We want to thank you, the commissioners, for having the wisdom and foresight to recognize child abuse as a community problem, and thank you for understanding how important it is that our community stand together and say that it is our responsibility to prevent child abuse.
Next on our agenda this afternoon are presentations, and first up is Tracy Perry, the clerk of the court, on the Aquifer and Parfer Awards. Hi there.
Afternoon. So we'll start the meeting off with some exciting news. I am here because the clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller's Office received for the 26th year in a row the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, and for 8 years in a row, the popular annual financial report for our Money Matters publication. After my presentation, I think you're going to hear that the county was also designated for the budget publication, and I don't want to steal any of their thunder, but it's congratulations to Citrus County because you are, again, for 2023, a Triple Crown recipient, which the Triple Crown recognizes governments who have received the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, Popular Annual Financial Reporting, and the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. These awards are not given out lightly by the GFOA, and the objective that I really have today is to formally thank publicly some individuals and recognize their efforts in putting this information together. First, the county departments, specifically Aaron Doran, Barb Luckham, and the Department of Management and Budget, all of the departments within the county that contribute grant information and are involved in the asset inventory, accounts payable, and payroll. I would be amiss if I didn't also thank our constitutional officers for their efforts in putting their financial statements together and having successful audits as well. That all gets put into the comprehensive financial report. And finally, to the best financial services team, I think personally is the best in the clerk's finance team in the state of Florida, Sharice Parrish, Julie Pitts, Crystal London, Patty Wood, April Thomas, Alex Fontenez, Doreen Budd, Elizabeth Atkinson, Jennifer Tadlock Story, Jody Wilkinson, our public information officer, Ashlyn Russ, who wears many hats, for her creative contributions on the Money Matters. And last but never least, our financial services leadership in Shelley Sansone, Heather Ewing, and our chief finance officer, Susan Sullivan, who pulls it all together. It truly does take a village, and I appreciate you letting me have a few minutes of your time this morning to make this presentation. And I do have our financial services staff. I doubt they'll stand up, but if they would like to, I would just like to acknowledge them for a moment.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Presentation by Aaron Doran.
Do you want to read it? Do you want me to read it?
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Aaron Doran, Management and Budget Director. As our clerk just said, the county is a Triple Crown recipient again for fiscal year 24. We're very excited about that. It is not easy to get this award, and just so you know, the award represents a significant achievement by Citrus County. It reflects the commitment of the board and staff meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the county has to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well an entity's budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operational guide, and a communication device. There are over 1,700 participants in the Budget Awards program. I want to say thank you to all of our departments and their cooperation. CIP meetings, budget meetings are never their favorite. It requires a lot of difficult work. We can't do it without everyone in management and budget, but specifically Barbara Luckham, Nicole Burns, and Georgette Brock. They work every day, executing the budget, preparing the budget, making sure we're doing what we need to be doing and what the board has guided us to do. And then obviously we can't do it without administration and the board's guidance and support. It really is your budget. It's what you want, what you think is best for the citizens, and we appreciate that support every day. And we couldn't also do it without the clerk's office. So we want to say thank you to them. They support us every day in everything that we do. So congratulations.
Thank you, Doran. I do want to take a couple of minutes, and I think Mr. Howard would like to chime in as well, but as we may or may not have heard from Tallahassee, that Governor DeSantis has created his own Doge in the state of Florida. However, this function really there's already an oversight function of this in the state, and local governments have some of the most open records to the public, and all budgets are posted online, and residents have a chance to voice their opinions through public hearings. So we're very much an open book. You know, you can come in, look, you can look online, come to our meetings as we're about to enter into the next season of budgeting. And with that said, I know that Mr. Howard in Tallahassee last week reached out to the governor's appointee for oversight. So I'm going to let him tell you their conversation.
We were Doge before they were Doge in this county, but I had good conversations with them. They were surprised I proactively reached out to them because I said we are an open book. We're about transparency. So I've given them some documents that they requested. They're asking of all municipalities and local governments. So they still have a lot of work to do ahead of them to prepare. And actually, the word I used earlier today was one of the three pillars you have to be successful is technology. They still have to get some technology to do what they're trying to attempt to do. But I have open communications with them, so everything that they've asked to date, I've given to them prior to the due date of April the 8th. That's all public documentation. Also, I shared the STARS program with them, which is another opportunity to share this across the state with other municipalities as well, so they were encouraged by that. But I'm looking forward to working with them in collaboration, and we stand ready to assist them in what their mission is. And if anything, it makes us better. I'm all about making us better and improvements and things like that with communications and transparency. But it was a good conversation that I had with them last week.
Thank you for that. Next on our agenda is H3 from Eric Landon and Growth Management.
Chair,
Yes.
that's a 120, it's 116.
Oh my God, we've never been early.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All right. So we have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Finnegan to approve the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Any further board comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Golly, 3 more minutes. Pardon me? Yeah, we have maybe like we have time for one. If you have 3 minutes, you can come to open to the public. Anybody like to speak open to the public? All right. Anybody like to do regular business, bids, E1?
Motion to approve, E1A through G.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard, a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E2, A
Second.
and B.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E3.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by Commissioner Finnegan. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E4.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E5.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis,
Second.
second by Commissioner Finnegan. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E6.
I have a motion. I have a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E7,
Second.
A and B.
A and B.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E8?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E9,
A and B?
A and B.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barrick and a second by Commissioner Finnegan. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E10.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barrick and a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. It is 1:20.
Commissioners, I'll be brief. No formal presentation, but H3 is to establish a community development district for Davis Reserve. which, if you're familiar, is right next to Brentwood, and you've probably seen some construction going on there if you've driven past. The applicant is here to answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, that's the extent of my presentation.
Board members, you have any questions? No? Is that it? Do we need to vote?
Gotta open
You need to have a
public
public hearing.
We'll open it up to the public then. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to address the establishment of a development district for Davis Reserve? Going once, going twice, closed.
Motion to approve H3A or B.
We have a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Davis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next on our, we got 4 minutes. Back
Motion to approve E11A and B.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Finnegan. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve E12.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E13.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public input? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E14.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E15.
I have a
A and B.
motion
A
by,
and B.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barrick and a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by.
Madam Chair? Ask for board comment?
Oh, would you like to comment?
I'm just,
Commissioner Davis?
I am not going to support it again for the same reasons I stated before. Not because I'm against the organization, but because we need that space for the shelter that we need to get organized on that stuff. So I'm just wanting to say why.
Can I make a comment?
You sure can, Commissioner Barrick.
Just so you know, the Civic Association, when it comes to disasters, are asked to leave the facility so that they can be used for the county. And they have never said no to leaving the facility. Also, this contract will bring in $13,209.60. Last year, the total income for that building was only $30,000. By approving this one lease, we have increased the income in that building by 30%. So I don't, I can see where you're saying, if they need it, and the Civic Association will give it. And I think it is written in their contract that they, if something happens for emergencies. So that's why I'm definitely in favor of this.
All right, we were doing so good. But now you forced me to say something.
You got 1 minute till the next one.
I am not against this. My issue was the fact that we don't have any information on the cost and the overhead to operate this. Frankly, I would just like to give the building back to Citrus Springs Civic Association and us be out of the business for $30,000 a year. It's not something that I think the county should be involved in. If we need it, we can lease it just like anybody else, but to be running the overhead, mowing the grass, doing the utilities every month, be in charge of a roof and all the expenses that go with it, I would rather give it back to the association. So that's just my 2 cents.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to support it. It's for 1 year, and as we know, the cogs of government move so very slow. So by the time you get the answers to the questions you're looking for, and we're supposed to have a space needs study that I thought would be to us by spring, we don't really know, which I do agree with that. But for 1 year, the county can get money, and then I guess we'll see next year maybe we'll have a better conversation of what this all looks like. But for 1 year, I'm going to support this.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. We're back on time, 1:25.
See what I did there for you?
You're so good. Let's see. You guys got me jumping all over the place today. All right, this is a presentation by Pace.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for having us back. Per our agreement, we'd like to present some information regarding the PACE program and the updates to the program due to SB 770 legislation that was enacted July 1st, 2024 last year and is currently in effect. So we'll go ahead and get started. We got four companies that offer PACE: Renew Financial and Y-Green. Unfortunately, Renew's running late. Y-Green couldn't be here, but we have Ryan from Home Run and, of course, Chris from Fortify. Thanks for having us. So as we know, Property Says Clean Energy. It's a way to finance specifically what we really focus on is roofs, impact windows and doors, AC units. Those make up 90% of the business that we offer, the financing that we offer. When folks get those letters from the insurance company saying, oh, it's been 15 years, time to replace your roof, which used to be 30, then it was 20, and now it's 15, that can, take some folks by surprise. This is an option, a voluntary option, and in case they want to go ahead and use PACE to replace that roof or fortify their homes against weather events by adding impact windows and doors. AC units obviously are our other big product type. It is repaid on the tax bill as a special assessment, and it's treated just like any other local public benefit assessment. So again, voluntary, it is added to the tax bill. The assessment is attached to the property, not the property owner's credit. It is not a credit-based product. The underwriting requirements are equity in the property, ability to repay, which again is one of the newer provisions, and several others which we'll go over later on in this presentation. It is repaid over a fixed term at a fixed interest rate. It's fully amortizing. There's no balloon payment. There's no, if you pay off today, you have to pay the whole interest from the life of the assessment. Absolutely not. Treated just like a mortgage in that respect. So whatever your payoff is, that's what you pay. A term does not exceed the useful life of the improvement. It's 20-year max. So AC units are typically 10 to 15-year products. So that you're not going to be able to do a 20-year term on that. We don't want you making payments on something that may have had to been replaced. And again, no prepayment penalty. So this is a bit of an outline of applying for PACE. And I don't know if anybody's had a chance to go through this yet. This is very small for my eyes. I'm going to go ahead and get a little closer. You like that? Okay. So first thing we do is we verify the property and the address eligibility. Then when the property owner applies. And then the property owner selects their own contractor. And if they're not signed up with us, it's a fairly straightforward process as long as you're licensed and insured and in good standing. We do social media checks. We do criminal background checks. Then you are welcome to sign up. There's no cost for contractors. Then, of course, there's the underwriting and decisioning. So that comes down to looking at all the different underwriting criteria set forth by the statute 163.08 here in Florida, and making sure that we abide by those. Then we do a confirmation of terms phone call. Now, this may be one of the more effective consumer protections that PACE offers. We call the property owner. We verify their identity using a technology called Onfido, which is basically it's kind of what like the IRS does, is you have to take a selfie and then upload a picture of your license and then make sure that that you are who you say you are. That helps to mitigate fraud. And we will go over all of the terms with you. We help you understand exactly what we're doing. Now, this is something that we've been doing, but now it's codified under SB 770. So this is something now everybody's required to do. And so we will go through and say, do you understand that this is what you're doing? Do you understand this is going to be on your tax bill? Do you understand your tax bill is going to go up by this amount every year? And that you can impound those payments through your escrow company by sending them your recorded document. We help them with that process as well, so you don't get hit with a big tax bill. So we go through all of the different terms. And if folks want to get out of it at that point, absolutely, it can say. And frankly, they can get out of this up until we fund. Like if in the middle of their project, even though they've already agreed to it, let's say they got a bonus from work, or maybe the kinds of money come their way, IRS gave them a refund or something, you're able to then, you can get out of it pretty much any time you want before we fund. And even when we fund, you just got to you just get a payoff statement and pay it off. So we're not trying to keep people in this program that don't want to be here. If you want to leave, please, by all means, use whatever form of financing works best for you. We are an option. And then, of course, you got the right to cancel. That's now prescribed by law, but again, we're pretty lenient on that. And then a notice to proceed is issued. That means you've met all the underwriting criteria. You've done the confirmed terms call. Now your contractor's able to start work. And then, of course, project completion. And then there needs to be a certificate of completion. This is something that is signed by the property owner and signed by the contractor. One of the other main reasons why PACE is a good consumer protection product is because we don't pay the contractor until that work is done and you're satisfied with it. And I'll tell you, I don't know, I personally, embarrassingly enough, have been screwed over by a couple contractors, pardon my language, but that's happened before. Folks, you give them the money and all of a sudden they're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, they're going doing this job, and it can be a mess. But if you're working with PACE, your contract that works with PACE, it's not going to happen. We don't pay you till it's done, and everybody's happy. Then, of course, we'll file that assessment, and then you'd begin to repay that assessment annually. I'm going to stop here. I just threw a whole bunch at you. Do you have any questions so far?
One.
Yes, sir.
So, an individual goes out, they need a roof or they need an AC. Do you help, especially on roofing, do you help validate what they're being quoted is an accurate and fair price versus an escalated price?
So that is a good question, Chair, and I'll tell you there's a bit of a balance here. If we do have internal guidelines, and roofing jobs can vary greatly from a tear off and a rebuild to tear off and reapply to a full rebuild. Like my house, I had 1x4 spaced, sheathing, and they had to take all that out, put all new sheathing on, and then put on the roof. That's double the cost. So sometimes there's extenuating circumstances. Sometimes we'll ask for more information to see if it's just a single comp roof and you're charging more than what's in our guidelines. We're not going to fund that. But at the same time, and this is the part that it's a little bit tough to swallow sometimes, but your credit card company doesn't call you up and be like, Chair Bays, you spent too much on that necklace from Tiffany. We saw a different one over here, and we think you should go ahead and buy that one. Consumer choice is real. Property rights are real. So we do our best to ensure that it's within a reasonable scope. But at the end of the day, maybe that contractor offers a warranty, a lifetime warranty, and they've been around for 50 years. They're going to be around for another 50 versus that roofing company that just popped up last week, right? Who they may be out of business next month. You have no idea. So sometimes people will pay more for certain aspects of that, right? Maybe they're able to get out more quickly. Maybe the one guy said it's going to be 5 months for materials. This guy said 2 months, but it might cost you a little bit more. Maybe there's supply chain issues, right? So, tariffs that are coming in. So there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that make that a challenge. But we do keep guidelines in place in order to mitigate overspending. So,
and if I could jump in and add to that part, Chris, we're not going to have, like you said, a bright line where if you go $1 over this, and that's because of the unique nature of every property, every project. But we certainly are asking those questions. If it goes beyond the norm of what we typically see, we're asking for additional information. Why is it outside of this? Can you provide additional invoices, or can you provide photographs of the property to show the conditions that existed that required extra work before you could actually put the roof on? So we are asking kind of a common sense test of does this look appropriate?
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and if we're finding no, then we have turned down projects on that basis.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Davis?
This is actually kind of hits home with me because guess what? I am ready for a new roof. So I already have someone selected, already have a bid. So I can use if a citizen were to do this, they can just use the contract. If it's a licensed contractor, but do they have to be registered with PACE?
You just have to register with whatever
Okay.
finance company that you're working with here, one of the 4 companies. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's a fairly straightforward process. We just do some background checking, so it can happen fairly quickly.
Okay, super.
No, I mean, that happens all the time. We often will get contractors we haven't worked with before, but they're a referral from a homeowner who's, selected them. And as long as we can verify, the licensing, the insurance, and do that, quick background check, make sure they're, passing the, what we expect. It's a very quick process.
Super. Thank you.
All right, moving on. So types of improvements, we've kind of touched on this already. Impact windows and doors, roofing, and HVAC represents most of our what we finance. And then we do solar. I'll tell you, we did 5 projects last year. It's not something that we really focus on, but it is available for now. Backup power generators, that's a newer product type that I feel like is good for the state of Florida. LED lighting installation, water heaters, pool pumps, pool heaters, and those have to be energy efficient. So we do have some additional qualified improvements under SB 770. The ability to do septic to sewer connections, which of course is an issue for many counties throughout Florida, and a septic replacement, which when I was living in Sarasota, I would have definitely wanted to use this for that. That can get pretty pricey depending on your system. So that obviously is a very good addition to the program. Going to be able to tie in a lot of folks that might need some financing for that. And then flood and water damage mitigation and resiliency improvement. So anywhere that's flooding, we're able to help mitigate those the flooding with our improvements. Do you have anything you want to say on that?
No, I would just maybe add to what Chris has already mentioned, just kind of anecdotally. I don't normally come down for these types of meetings. My colleague Rachel Hobbs is usually who's here. I'm the chief operating officer at Home Run, but happened to be in town this week. My mother-in-law is celebrating her 80th, and they live in Hillsborough, and they're actually looking at some of these measures right now. They're glad to see that PACE came back to Hillsborough, and because of their situation, she's turning 80 this weekend. She doesn't want to spend a lot of money on a product where you're not going to have it long enough to, get the cost back. But PACE is, a product that is more almost like a pay for what you use type of situation because it runs with the property. It allows people to not worry about how much longer they're going to be on their property. They can bring in that improvement that they need, whether it be a roof. In her case, they're looking at a permanent generator system. And if they move 2-3 years from now, it's something that follows the property. The new owner comes in and they're paying an increased cost for that property because it comes with that improvement, or it can be settled in escrow and taken off, which is sometimes the case of what happens. But in their situation, it's the perfect match for them. It's that niche financing that gives them what they need when they need it, without having to worry about, do I need to shell out this money, all at once now in a way that doesn't make sense, or am I going to be committed to this long after I plan to be in the property? So it's just, it's a very unique product in that way. I don't think there's anything else that compares.
Commissioner Finnegan?
And what is the current interest rate? And is that a fixed rate throughout whatever the timeline is, be it 10, 15, or 20 years?
It is fixed for the project. Right now, I think we're at 8.49. We're typically going to be about a point or two above whatever the Fed's at. When the Feds are at 3%, we were at 3.99, 4.99. So, we follow the bond market. That's how our pricing is set. And so it doesn't fluctuate though once you're locked in.
Yeah. It's,
what if the interest rates go down? So if someone's at 8.9 and then interest rates tank again, and it goes down to, let's say, a 3%.
You can refinance.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it
Through
would be
your
the
program.
same as any fixed rate, vehicle. It's same as a mortgage, where if rates dip below, then that would be something you would look at possibly taking out with a refinance.
Refinance through your program, or they would refinance
You can
differently?
refinance through our program, or you can go refinance your primary. Let's say your primary is at a higher interest rate. You can just pay it off and go that way too. We're very flexible. Everything can be done through escrow.
Okay.
There's no prepayment penalties ever, so whatever method you choose will, be adaptable to the system.
The one thing that you just said a few minutes ago, though, if somebody sells their home, is that the settlement from their proceeds would pay this off, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Because you made it sound like they could pass it on to the new owner.
So technically the Bond Act of 1915 does allow for that. However, Fannie and Freddie have weighed in, and although it tends to be shed in a negative light, the truth is that they ask that they're not going to originate a new first mortgage. If the lender is selling that loan to Fannie and Freddie, they're not going to originate that new first mortgage if there's a PACE assessment. But that's just the same as a HELOC. They're not going to originate a new first mortgage with a HELOC on the property either. You got to pay it off. So typically that's what happens. Sometimes with the refis it can stay. Sometimes if it's cash buyer, that can certainly stay. If they're not selling it, if they're going to balance sheet that loan, then which some lenders do, then you'd be able to transfer it at that point.
It's going to depend on the financing.
100%. Yeah, and it's negotiation between buyer and seller. So to an extent. So the other thing I want to say about these improvements is one of the focuses of this program is to keep people in their homes. It can be devastating for a property owner to receive that letter saying you got to replace your roof and not have the money and the cash out of pocket. Maybe you don't have the credit due to life, right? Everybody's had life happen to them, right? So we want people to stay in their homes. We want them to continue living there. And this is a good tool to use to help keep people in their homes, which may otherwise not have a lot of options. And they might be forced out of their home. And that's not always ideal for anybody, except for maybe the banks, because they like doing new first mortgages. But we think that this is good for property owners. So again, PACE does cover up to 100% of the upfront cost, financing up to 20 years with fixed interest rates. And again, it's available to residential and commercial property owners. Commercial has a little bit different criteria. Those transactions typically are done with attorneys and whatnot. So it's the consumer protections aren't going to apply to the commercial side of things as they would to the residential. And again, potential to reduce utility bills and savings on property insurance. When I put new impact windows and doors on my property in Sarasota, my insurance went down $100 a month. Now that's anecdotal, it's my own experience, but that's not uncommon with PACE. And it can be combined with any utility, local, and federal incentive programs. If you got my Safe Florida Home, you're able to apply that towards your, work with the contractor to apply that towards your balance. So. Property qualifications must be current on property taxes for 3 years, current on your mortgage. So these are folks that have been responsible homeowners, regardless of whatever their credit situation is. It's irrelevant. If they've been making those payments and they're making those property taxes, that means that they're dedicated to staying in that home and doing the right things. Those are the types of folks that we want to work with. Not an active bankruptcy, no involuntary liens against the property. Max funding is 20% of just value of the property as set by the property appraiser. And of course, ability to pay test is required. So consumer protections, there's several of these, and I think we've gone through most of them. This is a bit redundant here. Dispute resolution is one on here. We do work with property owners and contractors. A majority of the phone calls that we do get are typically related to contractor issues, and those are inevitable. It's hard to get away from those. So we do our best, being that we do hold the checkbook, to go ahead and be involved in that process if we can, if it's appropriate, between those two parties to make sure that we can get any types of disputes resolved. You have anything to add on that?
No, I would just agree with that, and I work closely with some of Chris's colleagues at Fortify, including their general counsel, and I know we have very similar statistics, so I would expect theirs are in the same ballpark, but that's something that we track. At the end of every quarter, we're looking at how are the resolution of these complaints when they do come up. How is that being handled? And most quarters, when I'm looking back with that compliance team, they're handling 100% of these complaints within 30 days. They're reaching a resolution on them, and I think the lowest I've seen in the last 2 years is one quarter they were at 97%, and that was just they had a couple complicated ones that took longer to resolve. But these are things that are being taken seriously. They're being tracked. And as Chris mentioned, a lot of times it's really an issue between the homeowner and the contractor, but we do our best in our role to facilitate the resolution of that, and particularly because of the nature of PACE, where funds are not released until that homeowner says, yes, the work is done and it's done to my satisfaction. That gives us some leverage in being able to facilitate that conversation and getting to a win-win for both parties where everything is taken care of properly.
Thank you.
So SB 770, again, we're going to go over these just briefly again. This did go, so we do, PACE Act does not exceed 20% of the just value of the property as determined by the property appraiser. That is in statute. That's a max we can fund, including the assessment when it's all wrapped up. Financing agreement does not include negative amortization schedule, balloon payment, prepayment penalties. And of course, all the property tax and other assessments have to be, I can't even read that, dude. I think it's time for a new prescription. Yeah, so no delinquent property taxes, no outstanding fines or fees related to zoning or code enforcement violations issued by a county. And I think that's a new one here. No involuntary liens, no notices of default or other evidence of property-based debt delinquency, and the property owner's current. So again, these are a lot of these things we've been doing anyway. And some of these were in statute before. Some of them have been updated with the new legislation. Property not been in bankruptcy. Residential is not subject to an existing home equity conversion or reverse mortgage. So if you have a reverse mortgage on your property, PACE is not going to be the right product for you. And that's something that has been more recent. Finance agreement does not exceed the weighted average useful life of the qualified improvement. So basically, you're not paying for something that that doesn't work anymore, right? That's the not to exceed 20 years. So, and that's not to exceed. So it doesn't mean that they're all going to be at 20. And it is going to be dependent on the products that you get. Okay, so the annual payment amount for all finance agreements entered into on this section on the residential property does not exceed 10% of the property owner's annual household income. So when we look at income, we don't just take stated, right? We don't just take your word for it. We're going to certainly ask you, but we have to verify that under statute. We have to verify that through a third party. So that's either like, Equifax or Experian. They have products, different First American, I think, has a product. There's a bunch of different companies that have products that we can do that, and that all has to be verified. And now that the Florida State Auditor General is in charge of PACE, which they've already started an audit on my agency, these are things that they're going to be looking at to ensure that we are compliant. And there it is.
Yeah. And I think just generally, I mean, those are a lot of specific, protections. But I think, if you compare this to any other form of financing that a homeowner might be using, to finance these types of measures, there's more protections in PACE, than anything. Certainly, I think you made the reference of somebody using a credit card before, or somebody who's just using a signature loan. They're not going to have the same level of consumer protections. They're not going to have the same level of control of when those funds are released to a contractor. So there's always been more protections baked into PACE, and with SB 770, a lot of what was considered best practices in the industry has now been codified and is being audited and enforced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you get a HELOC or a signature loan, you can get a tattoo, buy a boat, go to France. They don't care what you do with your money as long as you pay it back. We have ours ladders up to very specific public policy improvements, such as new roofs, impact windows and doors, HVAC, high efficiency HVAC, those things that reduce your power, increase your, people are trying to protect their primary asset. Their home may be their only asset. So again, that's the space we're trying to be in. So again, this is just a lot of more of the same SB 770, codified home rule. So obviously very important. The county has the right to call us up and do exactly what we're doing right now. And that's something we very much support. We feel like you need to know what's going on in your county and have some say in it. Like, let's say you're like, I don't like solar and I don't want you to offer solar under PACE. No, I got a motion in a second, let's do it. Like that's what you can do. And that's, so you're not dependent on the state law. So certain counties will have certain ways of doing things. Some will yield to the state, some it's a mixture of both, but that's certainly your right. Contractor quality assurance, again, I got to be licensed, background check. We check social media, workers' comp, bond insurance screening. We do a training and registration. There's an online program that they can access that will go through how the program works and why it's important that things be discussed and with property owners. But again, back to the confirmed term calls. One of the cool things about the confirmed term calls is if a contractor misrepresents the program, we find out about it pretty much immediately once we get on those confirmed term calls. You mean it's not a free government program? You mean I really have to pay this back? A contractor said, no, your contractor's wrong, and that's another issue we're about to deal with. But we can certainly correct that with the property owner before they enter in that agreement, before they start with the notice to proceed. And I think that's very helpful for everybody, right? We're making sure the program is being discussed properly. It kind of reconciles what's being said amongst the contractor and the property owner with us as a finance company. Lots of benefits to local government. Improves building stock, creates local jobs for contractors. I don't know if I sent this to y'all, but there's a study that was non-commissioned, just came out of nowhere. It was North Carolina and Yale that got together, and they looked at every single PACE assessment that was originating in the state of Florida, and they analyzed them. Not only were our foreclosure rates much less than the mortgage foreclosure rates for the state, but it actually showed that improved property values, benefits to property owners. When we saw this, we were blown away. We're like, this is great. We couldn't have asked for a better study. I will send that around. The first few pages summarize. It's really all you need to take a look at. But they actually just did another update for 2024. And I think the benefits are very clear. So that's what we have for you today. Again, Ryan Griffin and Chris Peterson here for you. Answer any questions you might have.
Board members, any questions? Well, thank you very much. That was helpful.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to jump back to open to the public. Anyone wishing to address the board, please come forward.
Terry Weber Nellis, Inverness Villages 4. Ms. Lynn stated that anyone who touches the rows needs to pull a utilization permit. That we don't have roads, we have paths. Who pulled the utilization permit to have the paths constructed in the rows? It was stated that the county controls the rows. What exactly are you controlling? Commissioner Davis, you cautioned us that if we touched the roads and caused flooding or damage to another property, that there could be legal action taken. Yet that's exactly what the county is allowing to happen because there's no utilization permit in place. Citrus County's failure to act has destroyed IV4 and now places lives in danger. I have another question for you. And this has been asked, I don't think by me. I know definitely another homeowner asked it probably over a year ago. And again, we're not getting any answers. Your land development code says you can stop a permit if another permit is missing, but the county says that it can't. Why not? And it's not just that we don't like your answers, Commissioner Davis. I don't believe them. Because for years we listened to your hands are tied. And then all of a sudden there's a moratorium. All of a sudden there's a letter to the AG, FDLE. I never believed that your hands were tied.
Madam
and I
Chair,
always think that there's
comments should be directed at the chair.
Please direct.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kennard. By the way, I wasn't going to go there with you, Commissioner Kennard, but
please direct your comments towards me.
When my husband and I met him at the Strawberry Festival a year ago, he didn't even know what an ERP was. And I don't think he knows much more today. Commissioner Davis asked him to take a drive through our roads. He did once. She asked him again, and he blew her off and said it wasn't necessary. He's never had conversations with anybody that I know of in IV4, and he has a district. You all have districts, but you all are commissioners for Citrus County as a whole. And if he spoke with anybody, maybe he would learn the difference between fact and fiction. So my other question was, what's up with you not paying attention to your land and development coding? And how much longer do we have to wait to answer that?
The clock's not been running this whole time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's about all I have done. I was going to address Commissioner Davis as far as the water containment systems because your answers were a little bit off. We got limited information when that was presented. And actually, the engineer that presented it was fired shortly after that was all presented to us. I can't jump on board with something if I don't know if it satisfies SWIFMUD, the DEP, how it's going to affect my drain field and my septic. I can't jump on board with something like that, not knowing facts. I realized that you got the information last minute and you had stated that you didn't have time to prepare a presentation. That's not our problem. You know, that's the board's problem if they're getting information last minute. The emails that were sent to Commissioner Davis go back to 2021.
Thank you.
And here we are. Oh, I'm sorry.
Next, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jonathan Hogerhide, and I'm speaking as a citizen who supports our first responders. I know this may lead to backlash, but I have no hesitation when it comes to telling the truth. You might wonder why I'm so passionate about these first responders. It's because I used to be a firefighter EMT here in Citrus County. I started as a volunteer and went full-time, completing my probationary period in March of 2023. I loved my job and the people I worked with, which I considered family. Unfortunately, in April 2023, my life changed forever. How did this all begin? In December 2022, I sustained a workplace injury to my right ankle. After recovering, I developed calf pain, and on April 9th, 2023, I suffered 2 blood clots in my lungs. My supervisors told me not to worry about my job or my health insurance, which was incorrect. I feared that the pulmonary embolism might have been caused by a lead clot from my ankle injury and the inactivity prescribed by my workers' comp physician. The county's workers' comp denied this because of an autoimmune disease I had acquired in the fire service. This disease is caused by environmental factors such as contaminants or chemicals. At the time, the doctor for workers' comp did not scan my legs, assuming it was due to the autoimmune disease. However, in August 2023, when I had to undergo open heart surgery, they discovered there were no clots anywhere in my body except for my right leg and my lungs. As a result of these blood clots, I have developed a heart condition and came close to dying. My health insurance costs upwards of $300 per month, and my medication costs upwards of $13,000 a month. Despite almost dying from heart failure, I was deemed ineligible for the heart and lung bill because work comp identified my heart condition as being caused by blood clots, but not identify the cause of the blood clots. I was perfectly healthy before joining the fire service, and now I must live with this condition forever. My workers' comp claim ends on April 9th, and all I received are denials. I was initially robbed of 3 months of health insurance by the fire department union contract I should have had access to. The fire department intimidated the union president into not supporting me by holding a closed-door meeting about me with the union president that they did not allow me to participate in, thus preventing me from using my benefits as I needed. When I informed my bosses about my situation, I would make regular calls to them and receive some in return. They wanted to know when I would be able to return, but I needed surgery to save my life. I told them I'm not going to the hospital. I was going to the hospital and that I would not be resigning for my health insurance. The administration chose to fire me and to stop paying my health insurance while I was in the hospital receiving the life-saving open heart surgery. I am not upset about being fired. I am upset that they have pulled the rug underneath my feet. And if you wanted to take a look at that and the date that you ended my health insurance, and that date is stamped on my chest, okay? It's time to stop disrespecting our first responders.
Thank you.
Anybody wants it, they can have it.
Just want to add that firefighters are fire trucks are disposable. Fireman is not.
Could you give us your name for the record,
And I am
please?
his mother.
Your name, though? Is there anyone else wishing to address the public? The board.
I'll fill it out when I'm finished.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Rosemary Nillis from Inverness, and I know that growth has been on the minds of you as board members as well as all of the citizens around here. And I wanted to comment and just mention some current legislation that will directly impact your ability and the ability of any other county to manage the growth that has come to Florida. One of them is, of course, the easy one is the allowing beer cans and plastic on our rivers. That would be HB 565 and Senate Bill 1822 about regulation of auxiliary containers. It's not just our rivers, it's our wetlands. So it's not exactly growth, but here's a preemptive bill. And I know I've talked with some of you about that. And again, the state would be telling us what we can and can't do with our waterways, rivers, or wetlands and lakes. But the one most important to me right now, and hopefully to you, is Senate Bill 1118 and its partner, HB 1209, and that's called Land Use and Development, and it would override the county's comprehensive plans. So whatever plans this county has formed and put in place, or any other county in Florida, would be nullified by the state legislature. It would override our comprehensive plans. It would allow agricultural acres to be developed by developers, sold directly by the agriculture owners to developers without going through the process that you all have. And so I see it as overruling the voices of the local people and limiting local control and accelerating the sprawl that we're all concerned about. So I just wanted to bring that up and ask perhaps if there are some responses that the county is making to this and any suggestions for citizens. And of course, I don't expect an answer now, but these are important things for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close open to the public. Next on our agenda is outstanding commission.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You don't want to
I'm
respond?
sorry. Would you like to respond?
On 1118, Senate Bill 1118, it is being widely decried in Florida Association of Counties, and a lot of people are lobbying against that. That would be pretty disastrous for our environment and rural lands. As far as Inverness Villages 4 goes, we can't hold a permit for lack of another permit. There's a really good reason for that. I've explained this before. The rule exists because of concurrent you expect to have concurrent permits if you have to have sequential permits. That slows the rate of housing being built, and time is money, so it ends up driving up the cost of housing. The containment system, I was pretty blunt on that. I said, today, you can't pull a permit. Tomorrow, with this ordinance that we were proposing, you can pull a permit. You just simply have to contain all your stormwater. It wasn't a mandatory thing. It's only if you needed a permit. So the slightly good news is that I did talk to the investigator yesterday with FDLE, and he is nearing the end. It is actually in sight. So hopefully we'll know more soon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Moving forward, outstanding commission items. Veronica?
Hello again, Commission. I have just a few updates for you. We had a lot last meeting. We just have a few small updates here. The first one is the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's vulnerability assessment. That will be presented to you on the April 8th board meeting. So we're looking forward to having that presentation from Ms. Bidwell. We have added the 2 reef projects to this list, so you will get regular updates on those. The inshore reef placement, we have an application in with Restore currently, and we are just waiting to hear back from them on that process. So we expect to have some feedback from Restore before we move forward on the inshore reef placement. And then for offshore reef enhancement, The solicitation period for procurement of the construction vendor will be closing in early April. And after we get that all together, we will bring it to you for approval. And earlier I did hear mention of the space needs up here. I just wanted to let you know that that will also be coming forward, I believe, in the next month. Anybody have any questions?
I do have one quick one. If we're going to get a presentation on the vulnerability assessment April 8th, it was on our agenda today to approve an extension to May 1.
That would be a budgetary question. I don't think I can speak to it right now, but I can get you some information. It might be related to the grant funding that we're using to complete that project.
But they're going to give us a presentation on April 8th?
Correct.
I might as well go ahead and put it out there. I'm very concerned, and I've brought this up with staff. We started that contract with, what's the name of the company?
TVRPC.
Nope. Help. Jones Edmond. We started this with Jones Edmonds. And then it was pulled away and given to TBRPC, and we awarded that contract a year ago in January. And it was supposed to be done in March. Now it's May. And there's a tremendous amount of funding that we're missing out on because of the lag time on this. And those grants open up again June 1. So I've expressed my displeasure with the process of this, and so I'm putting it out there for my board members. I'm very unhappy about this, and I am expecting a report April 8th because we need to get in line for the funding that comes along with that. So it's on the record. Thank you.
We will make sure that happens. Anything else?
Nope. Thank you. James, would you like to give us an update, and maybe you can address some of the preemptions?
Well, good afternoon, Chairman Pace, Commissioners. Always great to be with you here in beautiful Citrus County. First and foremost, I hope you all really enjoyed your trip to Tallahassee this past week. I hope you guys much out of your meetings as I did mine. Not that his ego needs it by any stretch of the imagination. I would like to publicly commend Josh Wooten and the Citrus County Chamber of Commerce. That is such an endeavor to put together an event of that magnitude, and they did a fantastic job. Now, last time I came before this board, I spoke a little bit about this huge push we're seeing for property tax reform. Increases to the homestead exemption, revising the rollback rate, and I'm happy to report that since I gave that presentation, absolutely nothing has happened. Those bills have been introduced. They have yet to be picked up by committee. So there's kind of a couple of things that could be going on there. First and foremost is it could be House and Senate leadership are focused on other priorities. Perhaps they'll look at picking those up later in the session. Or what I believe is more realistic is you had some members of the legislature who got excited about these ideas without the buy-in of leadership. And those could be stagnant, but we'll see how that progresses as the session continues. Now, as far as what's been going on this past week, and especially this week, is as a policy nerd such as myself, this is the time for the budget. So throughout this week, the House and Senate appropriation subcommittees will be rolling out their preliminary recommendations. Now, this is just an initial round of proposals. You'll see over time more things are added, more things are subtracted before going to the full committee and then the House and the Senate floor. And then, of course, they'll have the whole conference process, and we'll see how that ultimately pans out. Now, this morning I had a chance to take a look at the first subcommittee budget that rolled out. That was Ag and Natural Resources. That does pertain to one of our appropriations requests. That is the Barge Canal Boat Ramp. Unfortunately, in this first round, it was not included. Now, the silver lining is there was funding for the Homosassa River restoration, about $1 million. Again, this is so early in the process. These deliberations will continue to happen for the next 2/3 of the session. It's hard to believe we're already a third through, and we'll see how all that develops. But any questions I can answer as far as the budget process, kind of where we stand currently?
Good. Board members?
All right. So just a few quick updates for you for the sake of time. Few bills we're monitoring. First and foremost is Senate Bill 1738. That is transportation concurrency. That was filed by our very own Senator Blaise Ngolia. It has currently gone through one step in the committee process. It is up again for a hearing this afternoon at 4 o'clock. We're expecting unanimous approval in that committee as well. There is a House companion bill that is 203, filed by Representative Grow, that has not been placed on any agenda at this time, but we think with it moving through the Senate process, it will likely get picked up by the House next week. And one interesting thing is this bill would allow counties who opted out of concurrency to opt back in. And in very Citrus County fashion, we're one of 2 counties in the entire state of Florida that does not have transportation concurrency. This provides a pathway that allows us to maintain our level of service versus upgrading, which is traditional with concurrency in the state of Florida. Any questions I can answer on 1738? All right.
Good news.
It is very good news. Then there is
Chair, may I ask?
Yes.
Who's the other county? Do you know?
Jefferson County.
Thank you.
So then there is House Joint Resolution 679. That is term limits for county commissioners as well as school board members. For the sake of our time, I'll just talk a little bit about the county commissioner element. Now, in the state of Florida, the Florida Constitution does not limit how long a county commissioner can stay in place. There are roughly 12 counties, charter counties, that within their own county charter they have set term limits. But of course, not being a charter county, we default to the state standards there. This would set that limit to 8 starting November 3rd, 2026. So you wouldn't have any retroactive service, let's say anyone on this board. If this were to go into place, this wouldn't impact any of you. However, for school board members, I guess I will touch on that real quick, which limits that. That would be retroactive going back to 2022. Now, being a joint resolution, this will have to be placed on a general election ballot. If this measure passes, it would be in 2026. And we will see how that proceeds. Now, there is also a Senate companion bill filed by our very own Senator Blaise Angolia. That is Joint Resolution 802. It was recently viewed as favorable by Ethics and Elections. It's now in the Community Affairs Committee, very similar to the House side, which is now on its second committee stop. So it seems to be progressing at a pretty fast clip through the legislature currently. Any questions on term limits?
Commissioner Davis?
I have one question, because this came up in my FAC days last week, and I forgot to ask it. I don't know if you know the answer to this. If you end up becoming a charter county and that rule has been passed, does charter county overrule what the state says, or is that just mandated for everyone? Because there are some charter counties, and they look at their charter, I think, every 5 years, and they have continually declined to do term limits.
That is a fantastic question, and being largely familiar with Citrus County being a non-charter county, I can't speak to where that ends and where that begins. I do know that is a topic of conversation in some of these committee meetings, is that where does that authority versus the state, where does that cut off? Mm-hmm. But that's a great question. I think that's something as they continue to revise this that they're going to have to spell out in the language.
It is absolutely disastrous. The smaller the county, the more disastrous term limits are for the county, because they just don't have the stock of people to even run for office.
Right, and I think it's one of those traditional one-size-fits-all policies, and I think, what fits, or let's say Jefferson County might not fit in Miami-Dade, where you do have that larger talent pool, so I think that's a point well made.
Yeah.
And then lastly here, and this one is keeping Mr. Cheek up at night, is Senate Bill 810, that is stormwater management systems. That's followed by Senator Burgess. It requires cities and counties to inspect their stormwater infrastructure, things such as drains, canals, culverts, annually, and file a report with the Department of Emergency Management. Now, currently, these inspections are typically on a staggered tier, depending on exactly what element of stormwater management you're referring to. This would be by June 1st of every year. So you are talking about a massive endeavor, and not only just for Citrus County, think of somewhere like Hillsborough with the size of their stormwater systems, how long that would take to complete those. You're essentially putting an onus on cities and counties to hire additional staff just to meet this state requirement. And there's no kind of additional funding baked into this proposal. So the onus of those financial costs would be on the counties and the cities. We're never that lucky, are we? Never. So the good news is there is no House companion bill to this. It's just in the Senate. It is currently on committee. No, I'm sorry. It just moved to its third committee stop. It passed unanimously the past two, and we'll see how it proceeds from there. But those are the three I have for you today. Didn't really want to spend too much time on tax and finance since we covered that pretty extensively last time. Any questions about Tallahassee I can answer for you?
I'm good. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
We talked about Doge. I was going to bring that up under this item, but we talked about that earlier, but I want to congratulate Erin and her team again for all the good work they're doing with that award. That's proud moment that she received that in 20 years strong. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're over to I, Advisory Board nominations and appointments.
There is one error on that, not to interrupt, but there, when we get down to I-1, it's supposed to be 3 appointments, not 4, I was just told.
Okay.
That's not correct.
Madam Chair, I have 3 nominations.
All right.
I have John Colson, John McKee, and I have Bill Merriman.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Barrick.
Madam Chair, I'd like to also make nominations, please.
All right.
I would like to nominate John McGee, Bill Merriman, and Greg Pelletier. And to be noted, Greg Pelletier currently sits on this board. I sit on this board also, by your appointment.
All right, so we have everybody nominated.
And it's unfortunate because obviously they all 4, you know, you want to support every veteran, and that was nice that we had 4 and we thought we could nominate 4, but since we can't, I'll have to stick with the 3 that I nominated.
All right, we'll make a motion and nominations cease, since we have no more.
Second.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I find it unfortunate that I'm just now hearing that we are picking 3 because when it's this easy, I didn't do the research. I will say that Mr. Colson has reached out and he is actually sitting in the audience, which shows a lot of initiative. I don't know if any of the others are in the audience.
And I was going to say, just for the record, I just found this out a few moments ago myself, so I didn't have this knowledge until
You know, I'm a homework girl, Mr. Howard. I do my homework, but when it's 4 for 4, why spend the time on that? So
it was just brought,
Likely that's
it was
why
just brought
they're
to my
probably
attention.
not here too, you know.
yeah. Well, still, he knew that. He thought it was 4 for 4, and he came here. So.
All right, Madam Attorney. I'm struggling with what the process is when we have nominations and how do we eliminate?
You can do it by a voice vote, or you can do it by a ballot kind of vote and read, you know, the highest vote getters. You all can discuss it and see if anybody
Well, let's discuss it, because maybe we can.
narrow it down.
All right, Commissioner Finnegan, you're in the discussion mode.
Well, all right, let's start with me.
Since you are our board representative.
Well, I want to keep all my current board members here, the BOCC happy too. So Commissioner Barrick had nominated John Colson, and you seem to like that idea too. You know, it's just unfortunate I don't know Mr. Colson. I know the other 3, and I love them all dearly. If I changed one of mine, so I would like my 3, but if I'm not going to get full board support, would we do John Colson, John McGee, and Greg Pelletier? And I feel terrible to Bill Merriman, so there's no win for me. But, you know, if we need to switch it around, I guess I could.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I don't want to interrupt
Barrick.
you, but I could live with that. Colson, McKee, and Pelletier. I could second that if he wants to make a nomination.
Well, we still want to get discussion. I want to hear.
Would
from
anybody else
everybody.
like to weigh in?
I'll just say we're blessed to have 4
are.
excellent candidates for 3 spots, and this always is difficult. We could literally put 4 names in a hat, pull one of them, and that's the one that does not go forward. You know, when they're all 4 this good, what do you do? So.
He's not saying anything.
Well, I'm going to, I'll defer. I mean, you're our board. Yeah, That's our board representative, and she's come to a compromise, and I think that's good. I mean, so.
And Mr. Merriman, he just got accepted on yet another veterans board that I'm on, so I'm hoping that, you know, we're going to keep him plenty busy on that one.
Oh, that's a good compromise then.
Yeah.
Well.
There's a motion and a second.
So you
That
want to
was
make the
to cease-
motion?
And leave out Bill, let someone else do it, because I'm just sick about it.
I make
Janet, okay, you
Okay,
want to
you
make?
want me to make the motion?
I don't
Yeah,
care.
go-
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to change my motion, and I want it to be John Colson, John K. McGee, and Greg Pelletier.
Second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Barrick and a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input?
I'm sorry, while they're coming up, so the first words out of Commissioner Barrick's mouth was just nominations. It wasn't a
Yes.
motion.
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you. Just clarifying.
Hi, I'm John Colson. I live in Inverness here. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for consideration. I did spend 20 years in the United States Air Force.
Ooh, aim high.
That's right.
And I've also been pretty active as an RN here in the county at Citrus and Seven Rivers as well. I'm 100% disabled as a vet, so I kind of know some of the ropes to get our people where they need to go and what needs to come. I appreciate your input, all of you, Chair. Thank you for everything, and I look forward to working with you in the future, I hope.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you being here. All right, if there's no further public comment, any further board comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Commissioner Davis.
I have, well, I'll just say that I had a really cool experience with what you did last year with the growth management class with Florida Association of Counties. I was totally geeking out over going to Tall Timbers up in Tallahassee, which is a research, has a research element. It's a preserve that does controlled burning. And they literally have like a couple acre parcel that's a 1-year burn, then another 2-year burn, et cetera. And they study the effects on wildlife. I always figure, we do all this burning in the Withlacoochee State Forest. It's like, great, we don't have forest fires here because we do that, but there's all this ecology to it that I had no idea that how many different things are interconnected. And I should have figured that out, but I didn't. And it was just a really interesting experience. And then on the next day, we had a certified planner, land planner, and attorney, law school professor in land law. He gave us a course, and he said, my law students go through a whole semester of this topic. You're going to get it in 6 hours. So you talk about drinking from a fire hose. And that's another reason why I'm so concerned about this movement to try to institute term limits for county commissioners, because your first term in office, you are so wet behind the ears, it is all education. And I am just now getting to the point where I feel like I can somewhat go head to head with developers to make sure my vote is making a really good decision for the county. So I'm strongly in favor of all the education I get through Florida Association of Counties. It was just a really, really cool experience. And then I also had the first meeting with the Leadership and Governance Committee with FAC. It's a select committee that I was invited to participate with for their ongoing strategic plan management. So anyway, it was a good week in Tally. Thank you, Chair.
Very good. Commissioner Kennard.
Thank you. I will, I guess, simplify this as much as I can, or cut to the chase, I should say. The county, this board approved making an offer on the Pirates Cove property. The property owner has
countered with a significantly higher price that they would like to get for the property. And what we've got in front of us today is not a contract to purchase the property, but rather a letter of intent that gives the county 120 days to ultimately come forward either with a full price offer or some percentage of that offer. That doesn't mean that the amount that we would put into it would go any higher than what we've already put on the table. It simply gives 120 days for me to get out to have some conversations with the private sector, some of whom have already expressed an interest in participating and helping to move this property into the public's hands. At the end of the 120 days or any time before then, if we're not getting to ultimately where we need to be to purchase property, then the county is not obligated to it whatsoever. And even right up to the 120 days, this letter of intent is not obligating the county to anything. It's simply buying time for me to go out and try and raise the money, the remainder of the money from the public sector. So I hope the board will support it. It gives us a chance to ultimately to move this property into conservation and enlarge one of our parks.
Commissioner Finnegan?
Commissioner Kennard, last we met, it was 900,000, but I noticed the LOI was double that. I asked for some backup, like how we got there. I didn't really see negotiations. So, so you're looking for private dollars?
Yes.
And you said to pay the balance, but what does that mean? So how, like, you're looking, I'm assuming, at some Crystal River, your district park money, right? First?
For the only public money that would go into this would be up to the offer that we've put on the table.
The 900,000.
The 900,000. And there are several different pots where that money could come from. Could come from District 1 park impact fees. It could come from county-wide impact fees. It could come from TDC money. It could come from the Duke Special Projects Fund. So there's not any one of those pots that's got enough in it to get to that 900,000. But it would be some of that price out of each of those pots, or as many pots as we can.
Do you know how much money you have in District 1 park money?
Not off the top of my head, I don't know.
Steve, would Erin happen to know that amount?
I'm not sure if Erin would have that on the top of her head or not. We'll see.
And then, so you realize that, so the
We get it.
balance, if we start at the 9, it's more than 900,000 left to go, because it looks like we're responsible for all of the closing costs.
Anything above that 900, the only obligation that I would like to see the county stick to is the 900 that we made the offer on, okay? Anything over and above that, including closing costs, would come from the private sector.
And you think the private sector wants this so much that they're going to give you $1 million?
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. All I'm asking for today is the opportunity to go ask them.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. So in Park Impact Fee District 1, there's only about $6,000 left. In the overall Park Impact Fee countywide, there's about $2.2 million in reserve. So there are park impact fees available. It's just we're almost done with the old District 1 funds.
And the Duke Special Projects Fund, we've got about $2 million in that.
So this is what makes me a little nervous, Commissioner. Let me write that down, Duke. Is that I don't know when Eric Head is going to come back to us. And I said before, I like the idea of this park being added on. it's just, we have such a problem right now with youth sports, a huge problem, and we've done nothing about it for a quarter of a century. And now's the time. So that county-wide impact fee, like we're going to need that for a critical need. Although I love this, I was hoping that there was a lot more money in District 1 park money. And I want you to be able to go out and raise private funds. I don't want to shoot us in the foot to not be able to take care of youth sports because we've put all of our eggs in this basket.
I would completely agree. And I think that, again, all this is doing is, all I'm asking for today is the time to raise funds. And ultimately, at the end of 120 days, if this board doesn't like the deal, you still have the opportunity to close the door on it. You're not obligated to anything. I have said publicly in these meetings that I wholeheartedly support expanding our sports complexes, and that we need to, and that I would be willing to help identify funds and where those would come from. I think that there's still a very large discussion or lengthy discussion to have with some other landowners in the county to try and help us make these sports complexes come out of the ground, if you will. So those conversations, starting this 120-day clock does not preclude us from expanding youth soccer fields or youth flag football fields or things like that. This is simply giving me time to go out and raise the money.
So in your mind, if you wanted to raise $1 million, could you raise $2 million? Because I feel like I want to support you in your endeavor and make this a reality. I just know that if you came back very successful and said, I have $1 million, I don't know that I'm going to want you to take a big chunk of money out of this other pot, but maybe.
Well, what I would like to see this board stick to what we've committed to. Right now the board put an offer of $900,000 on the table. So yes, I would like to see the board stick to that, and then give me an opportunity to go out and raise the rest of it. And when it comes time to fund our whether it's our youth sports fields, things like that, then I'm on board. We find a way to do it. There are other pots of money other than just park impact fees that we can look to help do this, help accomplish both of them.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Barrick?
Okay, I was not on board with Pirates Cove. Okay. To me, this is not a good use of park impact fees, whether they be your district or the entire county, because as we heard this morning from Metro Forecasting, we need a park up in the central area, and I know I've proposed some things for that. Just wait a second. I've proposed some things for that, because that is where the people are coming, and that is where Metro Forecasting had said we needed. If you looked at the maps that they got, Commissioner Davis went to the FAC meetings, and I went to the same one she did, and we saw the maps that with the FAC was telling us were the same as Metro Forecast was telling us. We need a park in the Central Ridge area. Okay, the one I'm proposing does give water. It does give, 12 months a year usage, and it doesn't flood. So when I see you asking for us to give $900,000 towards something that floods, okay, that means it's not usable 365 days a year. There's a road to get out there that needs to be rebuilt. Okay? I ask myself, who's going to use this park? Okay, you say passive park. We already have a park out there that has a porta potty that when we have floods, like Hurricane Helene and Milton, the porta potty floats out into the Gulf. So if this is next door to our existing park and you wanted 900,000, and I was no on 900,000, I can't see, if you want to get somebody or a group of people together, like we did in this county with the YMCA, and get all the money raised, fine. Get somebody from the county private, not make it a county park and make it our responsibility to maintain after they get it. Because if you're going to get half the money from private and half from us, who's going to maintain the park? Is it going to be the county, or are these private people going to do it? So my thing is, I don't want anything to do with this 1,800,000 plus. And it's plus, because there are always going to be more. I would rather see money go towards the park I'm proposing and to the one that Commissioner Finnegan's proposing. Those are two needs, and we should have enough money to cover those two facilities with what's in the park's impact fees currently, because of the size of what you're doing and the size I would like to do. But I could never vote for anything, and I went out and I talked to people. I went to like 4 different groups this past weekend. Nobody wants the county to spend any money on a park out there. They just want a road. And the only people that are going to benefit are the residents that live there. It's 10 miles.
Commissioner Davis?
This sounds like there hasn't been any negotiation yet. I'm just kind of, I love the word gobsmacked that they came back with twice the 900. Go do your thing, Commissioner Kennard. But I'm not happy about the going so far above appraisal when we're trying to do right by the environment. So,
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kennard?
first of all, Board, this is a very unique piece of property. We've got one opportunity to get it in the public's hands. Once we turn our backs on it, this will be houses out there. It will be sold, and there will be houses built out there. Yes, Ozella Trail requires a tremendous amount of work. I've said that repeatedly. That's going to happen. But a piece of property like this, unlike the stuff that that our colleague has brought forward, this is extremely unique. It's a unique opportunity, not just to go out and buy a piece of property, but actually expand a park, which is the reason we collect park impact fees, to expand capacity. There's not been a typical back and forth negotiation on this property, because quite frankly, I would not advocate using public money for anything over what the offer is we've already got on the table. The owner obviously feels that property is worth significantly more than that. And so if the private sector is willing to step up and contribute to the purchase, then that will happen. If the private sector doesn't come through, then it doesn't happen. And this, county walks away from it. But again, I will reiterate that all I'm asking for today, look, if the board doesn't want it, then the board doesn't want it. But all I'm asking for is for the board to give me 120 days to see what we can raise to supplement the offer that this board has already agreed to put on the table for the property.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Barrick?
Okay, impact fees are park impact fees. That's because of the impact of the new people on our county. The new people have moved into District 3 and part of District 5, okay, and also down in Homosassa. They're not moving next to the water. And when I look at that, I say, where is the impact? Okay, we collected money. Those people deserve a park in their area, not something that you have to take this road that goes however to get to, and there's nothing there except a porta potty. That to me is not a park. I don't think our residents would appreciate $900,000 of park impact fees, and we will be paying $900,000 minimum Because that's what you said we agreed to in December, whenever, and I still voted no then. But the thing is, it is gonna cost us. It's gonna take out of our park impact fees, which could be used for other park facilities in a different area of the county that can be used 12 months a year by current residents. That's why I'm so opposed to it. It's not for any other reason except you're talking about using funds that should be for the people of the county to have a park.
Commissioner Finnegan.
Commissioner Kennard, am I correct in saying it's 3/4 of an acre, right? Is that the property?
It's 3.2 or 3.3 acres.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Davis.
if I weren't clear earlier, and I am going to support Commissioner Kennard on this, to see what private funds come up with. I do think that we can do more than one park improvement, especially since we're going to be hearing our impact fee study soon, yes? And we have a collective pot for this county. We no longer go by district. Yes, we do need parks throughout the county, but we are known as the Nature Coast, and a whole lot of people come here for the water and for kayaking, and that is a magical, magical place to kayak out from and hopefully not get lost like those two teenagers did up in Cedar Key, because it is easy to get lost out there. So do your thing. I just, the highest appraisal would be a little bit more reasonable to have come back than double, but I'm just a little fluffed about that, but I'm supporting you.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Then I will make a motion.
Wait, can I just ask some questions, please?
All right.
Zip it, Granny.
It goes from love to zip it in one day. Are y'all married?
No, but I might revoke her bond. So let's go through the impact fees. We have about 2.2 million in reserve in the overall. And we have 642,000 in District 2, which, just for the public, these districts do not line up with county commission districts. And 173,000 in District 3. And then I was given the figures to put a ball field in is about $250,000 per ball field.
That's what was discussed yesterday, yes.
And lighting is about $1 million, and that's overall lighting, not just per field. Is that correct?
I would have to ask Director Head. He was quoting, I think, one specific area for that.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Eric Head, Community Services Director. Yes, that was overall. If you were to do the whole facility, somewhere between 8 to 10 fields was $1 million. And you can
with
get.
the lighting.
With lighting. It's about, depending on the, full-size multi-use field, about 100 to 130,000 per field with sports lighting.
How much per field?
About 100 to 130 for sports lighting.
And then, but the field, just to erect the field, is
The
about
erected field,
$250,000?
that's a 250,000, that's minimum.
Okay. And how many fields could we accommodate on that 30-acre piece?
I was estimating, and of course, we haven't got with the engineers yet on drainage needed, parking lot and everything, somewhere between 8 to 10 fields, approximately.
So the time frame is ticking on the District 2 and District 3 funds, is that correct? The clock?
Right. So we just did an extension for one of them for another 5 years. And that part of that funding is being used actually for lighting. So we will need to address that. Obviously, for impact fees, it has to be new or expanded services. Or the alternate is to give the funding back.
Okay. Couple things. I understand the beauty and all the environmental concerns with this piece of property. And I'm willing to give you your 120 days, but what I'm not willing to do is to use any Duke funds for it. So I think Duke funds are, in my opinion, I think we're in a very turbulent time for local county governments with what's going on in Tallahassee. There's not a lot of assurity between now and election time of what the legislature is going to do with the Constitution, and how we're going, what our revenue sources are going to be, whether we're going to have an expanded homestead exemption, whether they're going to eliminate property taxes altogether. You know, we're trying to do a referendum to put sales tax on the ballot. We don't know if the state's going to come back and say we want to do away with all property taxes and have a 12% sales tax. Who knows? It's really just kind of a guessing game at this point where we're going. But so and we're headed into the budget cycle. I think it's we have a lot of needs. I mean, we have utility treatment plants that need major, 20, 30 million upgrades. And I know that's not pertains to this park impact fees, but I think we have to be cautious, and what I don't want to do is dip into funds that could be used otherwise. So the $2 million out of Duke. And if I had, some board assurance that we would not ever take the money out of Duke for that, then that would give me more comfort. I could support the 120 days. I've got to tell you, I've not had anybody come to me and say, yes, go buy it. And I don't know why private dollars would want to pay double what an appraised value basically came back at. But if they do, great. So I will support the 120 days, but and my gut is, we made an investment a long time ago into our park system, and I thought today when we did the proclamation with child abuse and what the one gentleman said, parents spending time with their kids, that's our future of tomorrow, and that's the people that we should be investing in. I mean, we hear too many times kids are sitting at home being babysat by electronics and not really, parents are busy either working jobs or don't have the capacity to spend that time with their children. So I'm really going to advocate that we enhance our parks and things that for our children. I think with what's happening in our community and the possibilities of attracting industry into our community is going to change the face of who we are. And I said it today, I really want to make sure that we're a community that if we provide those jobs in our community and they earn that income, that they stay in our community, that they live here, because that economic intrinsic value of that income staying here is a big deal. But we've got to really be focused on our future and how we're going to develop and what services and what our community is going to look like to be able to attract that young family to live, work, and play here. So I will support it with some assurance that it only comes out of the park impact fees. We give 120 days, and if you can't raise the funds, then it's done. But I do want to move forward with whatever we can do on the ball fields.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Kennard.
Yes.
I will not say I think I love you again.
Well, that's okay. I've heard that before. First of all, I appreciate your support. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve item K1A and B. And just, I do want to make a clarification about the Duke funds that I'm talking about in the Special Projects Fund. When the Duke natural gas plant came online, there was wide speculation that the remaining coal plants would be taken out of service at some point in the near future. And at that time, the speculation was it could be 3 years, could be 5 years, 7, 8 years, somewhere's in that range. But their life, their days were numbered at that point. I don't recall if it was, I want to say it was Commissioner Kitchen, but I don't recall for sure, suggested that we take the portion of the total bill, the Duke bill, ad valorem taxes, that we take the portion of the taxes that they pay that can be attributed to those coal plants and set that to a certain account, because that money would be going away at some point. Not the rest of the funds for their, their lines and the natural gas plants, stuff like that. And so that's where that $2 million comes from. Just for folks at home wondering, what's the special projects fund, that type of thing. That's where that comes from, because we didn't want to count on that money for recurring expenses years down the road. Like you're saying, and like we heard about today, possibly more unfunded mandates, things like that, coming out of Tallahassee. So that money is coming from any taxes that are derived from the existing coal plants that are still in operation. So anyway, just for clarification on that, on where that money's at, I would appreciate the board's support on giving me 120 days to go and see if I can raise some money.
So we have a motion on the floor by, excuse me, Commissioner Kennard.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is there any further board comment?
Yeah, I still want to know who's going to own the park and who's going to maintain it. Is it going to be?
It would be owned by the county and maintained by the county. It would be a
maintained by
county
the county.
asset.
Okay, so it would be, okay. And I want to know how many people went out and asked their constituents, do they want Pirates Cove or do they not want it?
Commissioner Barrick, that is not germane to this, and no more than it was germane to your idea about wanting to buy a piece of property on C-39. Nobody went out and asked their constituents that either. Nobody asked and got the information about how much money and how many staff and how many hours are we doing to the Citrus Springs Community Center. That was very germane to the point that I was trying to make on the vote the last time. So that this is simply, will we give a commissioner 120 days to go out and raise $1 million essentially, and if it doesn't come back in 120 days with $1 million on the table to close this deal out, then it's done.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we also give them $900,000.
We're not giving them $900,000.
If he raises the money, we give
Yes,
him
if-
$900,000 of impact fees.
Yes, if he raises the other monies.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Finnegan.
Just to point out, and I'm sure that would be likely because Commissioner Kennard should hold us at our word, but we're not voting for $900,000 right now. We're not voting how we're going to come up with that. We're not even voting if we'd actually purchase the property. We're giving Commissioner Kennard 120 days to figure out what he feels like he could maybe figure out, and I think that that's fair. We can talk about all the rest later when he comes back and revisits this again.
I would say that we need to be committed. I mean, if we're giving him 120 days, we need to know that it's coming out of impact fees.
Right, but I'm clarifying that's not what the vote is. It would be understood, of course.
All right, I'm calling for the
Ma'am,
vote.
ma'am, I apologize if I can just, when the letter of intent was sent over, our land section reviewed it, and there are some incorrect references in the document. And so we've asked as part of your motion that we have an opportunity to review that. We need to work with opposing counsel and get some of those references fixed before the chairman would sign it. So that's why we've asked for direction after review by our office, because we need to work and get those references
Would you like
fixed.
Commissioner Kennard to modify his motion?
No, I think it's in, it's.
No, I put
it's
in
in
there
there?
A and B.
A and B, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So we're
So-
I just wanted to make sure that y'all
I'm sorry.
knew that. Or
Well, I'm glad that she said that, but then I still want to vote to give Commissioner Kennard his 120 days, but I don't know about then a letter of intent changing and then Chairman Bays signing something that the board, I mean, if it changes quite a bit, I don't know that we should put that on her to decide now. Did it just change enough to sign it? Did it change greatly and now she's signing it without the board? I wouldn't want to be in that position.
So I don't believe that there would be anything substantive in terms of the price, the days. This is references to legal descriptions and whether or not we're referencing an OR book and page or whether we're referencing a plat book and page, more Scrivener's kinds of issues. Certainly I don't think that I would have the authority to like change a price or anything like that. It would just simply be Scrivener's type things. And I always look out for the county's best interest. So if there was some issues that someone was trying to attempt to put in there that I wasn't comfortable that it was in the county's best interest, I would absolutely bring it back to you.
Fair enough. Are you comfortable?
I'm comfortable with that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you, board.
All right. Commissioner Barrick.
Well, let's see, I went to Tallahassee. I also went to the same meetings that Commissioner Davis went to, and I enjoyed everything I learned and had fun doing controlled fire burning. That was fun. And it is very necessary. For those people who don't understand, controlled burning is an environment, has a wonderful impact on the environment because it actually helps the smaller animals. It helps the environment itself continue to grow, but it also helps so that we don't have forest fires like other places do. And I know our fire department does controlled burns, and I'm very happy that we do them in Citrus County. So that was one thing. Learning about the growth management of the state on Friday was really interesting, and it matched everything that I had already known about growth management in Citrus County, because the map that they showed us on Friday was the map that he showed us today, this morning. And it's also what the CIP had for years and years, our map that we've had for years and years as to where do we want Citrus County to grow. And it showed exactly what was, again, stated and stated and stated. I really do enjoy going to all those meetings. And yes, they were long. The one on Friday was supposed to be so many hours, and it went longer. And the one on Thursday was supposed to be so many hours, and it went longer. And Commissioner Davis will tell you that. We didn't get home on time, did we, either day? But we didn't mind, because it was a really good learning experience. And yeah, commissioners need to get a background in certain areas when they first come on board. I'm not pro or con about term limits, but I do know that our county actually did something positive this past month, because Mr. Skinner and I sat next to each other, and when it came to unemployment, we are not number 1 anymore. We are now number 3, because instead of having 5.5% unemployment, we only have 4.8. So I was very, very pleased that we got some people back to work. Hopefully, Career Source is going to get a whole bunch more people back to work. Thank you.
Commissioner Finnegan.
Yes, I'd like to just review a few numbers for the Veterans Advisory Board. In 2024, 4,852 veterans and their families were served, and that is not a duplicated number. That is a very real number. There were 41 outreach events to the community. Besides all that our veterans have honored us with our freedoms, they also bring into Citrus County, between their compensation and pension plans, $157 million into Citrus County. $157 million. Then if you add in their VA medical benefits that they receive here, that comes to $297 million a year. So having all these veterans in our community is definitely a privilege. Already, just for the months of January and February, 851 veterans and their families have been served, and there's already been 12 outreaches into the community. And if you see, he is gone, but our Veteran Service Officer, our own Phil Watson, was named to Representative Bilirakis' Service Academy Selection Committee, and that is a great honor for him to be able to select those new recruits. So we're doing great things. Mr. Watson and his team are helping so many veterans, so I just publicly want to thank them and thank those that are serving on our Veteran Advisory Board, and to our new member that I'll have the pleasure of serving with soon. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I really have nothing other than I would like some board direction on whether you would like to have a fertilizer ordinance expansion on the agenda. I've had a visit by the Sierra Club, I believe. I think they've talked with several different commissioners. I've kind of vetted it through some of the communities that touch the water, and everybody seems to be in favor of having an expanded fertilizer ordinance on the books during the summer months. So if it's the board's desire, I will put it on the agenda. If not, we will move on.
Yes.
I have a few things to say.
Ms. Finnegan?
I know all of those clubs, especially I'm an active member of the Homosassa River Association too, would expect me to be the one being 100% on board, but I just have a few questions for that. One, and you and Commissioner Kennard was at that meeting. Do you remember when the gentleman had asked about, what about like pesticides and everything? Like nobody cared about the pesticides, it's just the nitrogen. If we have an ordinance, how do you monitor it? Because in the summer, you can still fertilize. There's different fertilizers. They're just asking you not to fertilize with the ones with the nitrogen content in it. And I don't see code enforcement or county staff or anyone going out and asking to check the bag when they're fertilizing, and there's still pest control. I also started doing some research after that because, of course, it sounds like a great idea. And I had some meetings with SwiftMud too, asking about nitrogen, and I guess they can break it down, and it's a guess to see where the nitrogen comes from, I guess down to its like DNA. But, you know, they say there's more nitrogen in the water because, you know, in the summer because of fertilizing. But if you, in the grass clippings, but if you look at how much nitrogen is in rain, it rains all summer long. So nitrogen is just raining into the water constantly. So I'd like to hear from other commissioners. It's not that I'm against that, because I know the county, we're doing projects to take nitrogen out, like harmful, like our subject to sewer projects and some other things that we're doing. I just don't know what teeth this has, because people are going to fertilize if they want with safe fertilizer, let's just assume, all summer long if they want to. I just don't know where we're going with this. I would say education, if we could do that, or make suggestions, or teach people about healthy, I don't know about healthy, but the right fertilizers versus not right all year long. Trying to put a law, if you will, that would be punishable. I don't understand or see the path of how that would work, but obviously I'm just being part of the conversation. Would love to hear other board members.
Madam Chair.
Kennard.
Commissioner Finnegan, you make a great point, or great points, I should say. And I concur. I'm not necessarily opposed to a summer fertilizer ordinance, but I don't think we have enough information yet to put something like that into place. I would like to see how many citations there have been for violating our current fertilizer ordinance. I suspect that number doesn't move far off zero. And that ordinance has been on the books now for a number of years. University of Florida, after several counties, and I don't know how many, but counties along, I believe it was the Indian River Lagoon or Mosquito Lagoon, were the ones that started this summertime fertilizer ordinance movement that has started through the state. University of Florida did a study. I believe the state of Florida paid them to do this study, but they did a study to determine the effectiveness of the summer fertilizer ordinances. And after completing their study, they came to the conclusion that it was inconclusive. So even a strong agriculture school like that, going through the process of trying to determine, whether or not these things are harming our waterways, which of course none of us want to do that. Their findings came back inconclusive, and I haven't seen anything else to show that it is a benefit. And so maybe I don't know, maybe possibly a workshop, or maybe invite some professionals in on the matter to come in and educate us and the public on it as to why we should go down this road, or maybe you might want to wait it out a bit and see if there's more evidence that surfaces.
Well, Crystal River is actually in your district, and not that we have any jurisdiction over that municipality, but given the amount of work that they're doing on that bay, it seems like we could almost, if they were amenable, they could be the test pilot case for it. Where if they had some kind of what I was told last week by some people, from Save Kings Bay, or Save Crystal River, is grass clippings have some of the highest nutrient load. So if they had an ordinance where you had to catch your grass in a bag, not letting it blow around, get into the streets, do the wash off, or into the bay, that would be, to me, that would be a very good place to kind of test and see what they see over a year with everything that they're doing there. Yeah. And I have no idea if they would even consider that, but I would love if they would jump on that bandwagon. Mm-hmm. Is that something you would talk with the city about and see if they would?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Commissioner Bays, do I get a chance to talk now?
Do we have to?
Yes.
Okay.
I really do.
All right.
Okay, it's been years since they did the ordinance for the nitrogen. There was talks and discussions and discussions. I'm not sure if you were in on those or if it was right after you left. But the reason they did the winter months was the amount of effect it had on the waters. And at the summer ones, they said, because they looked at it, they talked about it, Ron Kitchen was here, they went round in circles and circles as to when they would have this ordinance, when they wouldn't have it, what months were the best, what ones were the most, wasn't worth it, okay? And they said residents, could not use the fertilizer. However, our professionals or our landscape people, we don't have any control over them. So if you're talking about use, the ones that are gonna be using this fertilizers are the landscapers, because most of the people at this point in time, they know they're not gonna get a ticket. Now, if you wanna have a workshop, that would be fine. I don't mind a workshop. But if you're talking Crystal River, that's a city thing. That's not a county ordinance as far as I know, because.
Well, that's what I just said, if he wanted to talk
Well,
with
that's
them
what I'm
and
saying.
work
If you'd
through.
like to have a talk with, a workshop, but we've already got an ordinance on the books. And to do this again and get another ordinance, I don't see any, I see a waste of time.
Okay. Very good. Moving on. Ms. Lynn.
Thank you. We are asking for an opportunity to have an attorney-client session regarding the Cardinal Farms Group LLC versus Citrus County, Florida. We're asking that you schedule that for April 8th. And although the agenda memo says 9 o'clock, you have a 10 o'clock workshop that morning. or it might be a public hearing at 10 o'clock. So we're asking actually if you can schedule that for 8:30 instead of 9. So 8:30 on April 8th, and if we could be sure that the, those that advertise would note the corrected time.
I'm fine with that.
We
Board?
need a motion and a.
You need a motion? I move that we have an attorney-client session on April the 8th, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. about the Cardinal Farms Group.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barrick and a second by Commissioner Kennard.
Yes, but if I could also, Dale Scott is representing us on this, and I haven't had a conversation with him about it, but I would suggest that I ask him to appear by teams or otherwise, just to cut down on the costs, especially since we're moving it to 8:30. He'll probably appreciate not having to drive at dark 30.
Okay.
And yes, open.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this issue? Seeing none, is there any further board comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. We are now going into our last open to the public. Anyone wishing to address the board, please come forward.
I am Skating Bob, and I'm representing Too Far, so I request 5 minutes, please,
Okay.
if the chair allows. It's refreshing to see the mission statement at the beginning of the agenda for the BOCC meeting. And the very first line says, to manage growth and foster prosperity by prioritizing the protection of environmental assets. And I think the operational word here, and that is protection of the environmental assets. There was an article in the Chronicle about 6 or 7 manatees recently died, plus a massive fish kill. Commissioner Finnegan actually was part of that article. Very sad, and that is part of our environmental assets that we must protect. So the question is, how do we know that we're protecting it? We do a lot of things. We invest millions and millions of dollars in the Save Crystal River project and the replanting of the eelgrass. We're investing millions and millions of dollars in the conversion of septic to sewer. And we even talk about nitrogen and the effect of nitrogen. But in order, when you do something, how do you know if it's successful? Now, in industrial process controls, you get feedback. You have to know the results. It's monitoring. So what is our monitoring? What's the monitoring of the water that the manatees were in? What's the monitoring of even the cost of fertilizer? And this is a big question mark in my mind, and it should be a question mark in every citizen's mind. Are we successful? What's the feedback loop? And what was really amazing to me was that the article that the Chronicle published, and this might be incomplete, with all due respect to the Chronicle, they might be not the total picture, but it said that on March 15th, the FWC, that's the Wildlife Commission, staff visited the site and collected 3 water samples, all of which were associated with normal water quality. So what's normal water quality? Gee, everybody would say, well, if it's normal, it must have been okay. Well, they measured dissolved oxygen, pH, salinity, and temperature. In my opinion, those are extremely inadequate. If you only measure the temperature of the water, that's irrelevant. The pH is probably around 7, that's the acidity or alkalinity, and it can vary. The salinity, well, it's probably okay because that river is mostly fed by fresh water and not any, those areas, except in a storm, would be saltwater intrusion. So you've got 4 items that, in my mind, are insignificant. So what would be significant? And this is what we need. We need to get feedback of the most critical items. No mention of nitrogen. By the way, nitrogen. Nitrogen is in a tremendous number of chemicals. Some are harmless. As a matter of fact, over 70% of the air we breathe is nitrogen. So when you use the word nitrogen, you got to be careful about nitrogen coming down in rain. That nitrogen probably doesn't affect plant growth hardly at all. It's in the form of a gas. But what are things that we should be watching? What should the public be concerned about in order to say, yes, we do have quality water? How about microbial contaminants? How about lead? Nitrates and nitrites. Those 2 are the 2 functions of your fertilizer, nitrates and nitrites. So you got to be careful. You just can't say nitrogen. Arsenic. We do have arsenic in some of our communities in the drinking water. Disinfection byproducts. Pesticides. Glyphosate. That's Roundup. Did you know that Roundup is 10 times allowable maximum concentration level, 10 times more than arsenic and other chemical solvents. So in closing, I say we need feedback to our constituents, to all of us, as what is the real metrics of true water quality.
Thank you. Commissioner Finnegan.
Skata Bob, very well said. Thank you for that. I did want to add to that, forgive me for my probably poor pronunciation, but when FWC went out and sampled those 3 sites, they did also find an elevated subsurface abundance of the rhaphodophyte heterosigma at South Blue Water Point and South Taylor Terrace. Which it says can produce compounds that can damage gill tissue, and fish kills elsewhere have been associated with heterosigma concentrations at or in excess of 1 million cells per liter. They did look at the dissolved oxygen. Anyway, at the end of the story, it says that they couldn't necropsy the fish, so they're just calling it inconclusive right now. But a further email is telling me that they're working with fishermen and people on the water if they can capture some of these catfish and how to take care of them, and then they'll try to get them to send them in. So there's a process to try to necropsy the fish. Now, the manatees, of course, is another story because they didn't necropsy all of the manatees because they typically don't do that. But now there's a trend, they've said. So I believe they're starting to necropsy them, but several of them that were necropsied died of from their gut health, because when they eat something different, they get this bacteria, which causes this illness, which has killed them. And another one just died Sunday in the Hulls River. So yes, I'm still trying to get with the different agencies so they don't give up, which I don't think that they are, and somehow tie this all together. I'm not a biologist by any stretch of the imagination, but different people are talking about the different things that have occurred. Is it one thing that's causing this? Is it a perfect storm of things? We don't know, but I'm not going to give up until somebody starts finding answers that say something different than non-conclusive.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Davis.
Back to the fertilizer issue question. There were lots of good questions, and I believe Randy Oliver used to call it a paper tiger, if it's unenforceable, always a good term. But I wasn't sure what the consensus was because we were kind of all over the board. I think that we should look into all of those things, not as just sort of an offshoot. It should be something that's on our agenda. To the health of our waters, we have to identify a problem, which is we have issues. The manatees are dying all of a sudden, And we are always trying to improve our water quality because we all know that Crystal River was in horrific shape, and I'm less familiar with Homosassa, but it's getting better. And so when you do that decision chain, you come up with all the various aspects that might be addressed, and certainly fertilizer usage is one of them. So maybe we go forward with it, maybe we don't, but we need more data.
Well, I thought that was the consensus that
Was to go
Commissioner,
forward?
well,
Okay.
Commissioner Kennard is going to talk with the city of Crystal River.
Okay.
We don't have any jurisdiction over them, but if he talks with them and maybe they created an ordinance that says you can stop mowing grass and your grass clippings have to be caught because that's a big issue. Grass getting into the water.
There's a lot of waterfront property that's not within city limits, though.
But again, they're doing the water quality there. I mean, they have some really good hard data on water quality within Kings Bay and what they're working on. So maybe if that's our start point, that since they have been working on this for 12 years now, maybe they can be the lead and we can figure out what works, what doesn't before we just hop in and try to fix something that we don't even know what we're trying to fix.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm still interested in hearing more about fertilizer. I'm one of the commissioners that they did talk with last year, and so, anyway.
But I thought maybe since it's his district, maybe he could go back, have a conversation, see if they're interested in doing it. If they're not, then he can bring that back, then we can figure out a different methodology on how we want to address it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I just got a quick question for Commissioner Finnegan. In the conversations that you're having with FWC or some of these other organizations, has there been any conversation at all about the DOT DRA that was created out there on 19 to expand Highway 19? And that holding pond has been a problem child since the beginning. DOT had acknowledged that there was some engineering issues with it to start with. I believe they went in, made some corrections there. And then here just maybe in the last 2 months or so, 2-3 months maybe, it looks like they've done a significant amount of work to the drainage going west from that holding pond again. So I don't know what's happening to that water that's supposed to be held in there. Ultimately, it's ending up in the Halls River for sure. But has there been any talk of, this happened? And I don't want to throw DOT under the proverbial bus, but they were doing a lot of work out there with some pretty heavy equipment and did something to the drainage out there. And, now we've got catfish and manatees dying in the Homosassa River and the Halls River, and thankfully not in Crystal River. Is it just simply a coincidence, or could there be something involved there?
Yeah, just probably within the last day or two, I started getting all that information, like with temperature readings. The temperature was so different and the turbidity. So obviously we had the board meeting today to prepare for. But yeah, tomorrow was going to be trying to get a hold of the right people at DEP, because I hear there was some fines or something and a correction. A long time ago, I talked to our own staff and they thought that everything was corrected, which I'm sure it was reported back to them that everything was corrected. But maybe it's time for someone to take another look. There's a lot of things that changed in the Homosassa River, that being one. We have a cleanup project. They removed acres and acres and acres of vegetation, and vegetation wasn't coming back. And then we had the hurricanes, which I think in both Crystal River and Homosassa kind of destroyed vegetation too. And then I know in Homosassa there's some salinity, so some's not coming back like where it should be. Is it one or a combination of these things? I have no idea. But if I can get all the right experts, because they have different people, right? These people test water, these people test fish, these people test manatee. The different biologists will look at the algae and things. So we need all these people talking. and maybe figuring it out together.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no.
The property owner that is just west of that DRA, the holding pond there, they had, I know they had a big wooden or a long wooden fence put up all along the front side of their property. And like I said, there was a big piece of equipment out there doing something with the drainage there, actually tore up quite a length of that fence as well when they were addressing it. The only reason it caught my attention was because I thought that it had been fixed, and apparently it had not been fixed yet. And so DOT contractor was back in there doing something with that holding pond. And so when this issue first started with the catfish dying and then some of the manatees dying, I thought, I wonder if what they did there had something to do with that. I don't know. Again, I don't want to throw DOT under the bus. It caught my attention, and then we've got these fish and manatees dying of unexplained causes so far. So.
And the fish are still dying. We're not seeing the numbers that, we were seeing. I mean, they were everywhere. But when they were alive, why did so many come into that blue water area? That's another unanswered question. They all kind of came in there, which was unusual. Even just a few days ago, I saw a catfish laying at the bottom of the river, but gills still moving, but laying on its side. Obviously, it was ready to die. Why? What's happening? But I may have to go out there with that property owner and buy that DRA. And I've gotten in, sending things, the history now. I think I have a better understanding, but, eyeballs and feet on the scene is always best.
Yeah. Something happened there, whether or not contributed to any of this, no earthly idea, but there was definitely some significant work that took place there.
Well, and I think it's all of us, and as a board saying that we're concerned, because even with the manatees dying, when I approached the right people, even Swift Mud, and FWC, they didn't put it all together. So making that call, talking about the catfish, talking about the manatee and where they're located and what's happening, they started putting it together enough to start doing more necropsies and calling it a trend. So
I don't know if you've talked with Representative Grow about it, but I know he's very aware of the situation. I'd reached out to him. He said that at the time that they hadn't gotten any definitive answers, but I'd make sure to stay in touch with him.
Thank you, I will.
He's yards from their offices.
Perfect. I may need his help.
I know tomorrow we have a call with DOT. Is Carlton going to be on that? Are you going to be on that call tomorrow, Carl?
Yes.
Can you find out maybe what that DOT project was on 19 and get some answers for Commissioner Finnegan? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I think you're still in open to the public.
No, we closed open to the public. We did.
Yes, ma'am, you closed it. That was your discussion following, but you still are on item P.
I apologize.
All right. I think that's it, unless somebody else has something. If not, it's 3:29. We're adjourned.